What's up, everyone, and welcome down to another episode of The Vault. And today's going to be an artist spotlight. And who better to talk about this guy who we're going to talk to is my, talk about, smoke a lot of weed, is my partner in my tribute band in crime, Mr. Dave Chapman, who plays Angus Young in my tribute band AC/DC. But we are going to talk about Angus today.
Angus.
It's all legend. About Angus today.
The legend.
And we're going to talk about what made, obviously you play him and, you play his type of stuff. But born in 1955, so that would make him about 64 years old and around that.
Okay.
All right. Is that what it is? 65? I don't know.
I thought that was Malcolm. I'm not sure.
It?
Yeah, Angus is, I don't think is...
64. 55.
50, yeah. So he's 64.
Is he that old? Huh? It's a good thing we're shooting this. I didn't know that. I thought it was...
It's the schoolboy uniform that makes him look. And to me, it's like I said on the episode that we had done, you and I, prior about our tribute band, that I felt that, once I seen these two guys play together, this was what I wanted to do,
right.
and vocally to me. And, talk about what Angus meant to you. Talk about, did you ever get to see him with Bon Scott? I don't know if you ever got him.
No, I was a little younger. I think my brothers did. I think I had mentioned that the youngest of 5 boys, so I have 4 older brothers, and so I'm sure they saw him at some point. But this is the 70s. There was no YouTube. There was no video. There was no social media.
You had 8-track and vinyl.
Right.
And that was it. And cassettes towards the end of the 70s.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So there wasn't a lot of exposure. You saw pictures. You saw pictures.
That's really, it's all you saw was pictures.
Yeah, and you're looking at this guy. He's just sweaty and hair everywhere. And he's just beating the shit out of guitars. And you're like going... There's no way this has to be, an image that they caught him at one point in time. There's no way he can act like that. And then the movie came out, Let There Be Rock. Remember the movie?
Yeah, of course.
Live in Paris. That was 79.
Yeah,
but even before...
But you saw it in 80. It was shown by 80. I was 16 when that movie came out.
But before then, I think they appeared on, like, Don Kirshner's rock concert. And
one time, right.
They did Sin City or whatever, and you're like, okay, that's one, they're... But then when you go and you see that Let There Be Rock, and you go, oh, my God, this guy's a freak of nature.
I mean, he just keeps moving. He must sweat 10, 15 pounds a night.
It's crazy.
Just his movements at all. And that's what captured me as well. But more like I was all into what it was ever like Black Sabbath and dirty and evil. And so they always had the horns and the tail, and there was always something about very devilish about AC/DC, and the logo was very
more
cut.
Mischievous and not so much
evil.
Yes,
definitely. I agree. More mischievous. I guess I would change it to that for sure. And to me, that was like something that I felt that was rebellious as rock and roll. This is what rock and roll should be: dirty, nasty, nothing clean about it. Raw.
The song titles.
Oh yeah,
Big Balls. She's Got Balls. There's just so much.
And the metaphors that they came up with are the
just
best.
Dripping.
Oh yeah. Bond wrote very filthy from the. Rosie about going with a big girl, you know what I mean? It's
the Jack.
The Jack, exactly.
I mean,
so many.
So tongue in cheek.
I guess baughty is the word, right? Bawdy, very humorous kind of stuff. I think
it appealed to the 12-year-old. Because in '78 I was 12.
I was 14, so that's basically the year I got him too. And so I was 14, and I was just like, oh. They were like, I loved Led Zeppelin. I loved Black Sabbath for like, there was a 2-3 year period of time. AC/DC was my favorite band. You know what I mean? Because they represented everything that was raw and dirty.
But it seemed like Sabbath and Led Zeppelin were serious. They, there wasn't much.
No, these guys were fun. This was all about.
They were fun.
Problem child, you know what I mean?
So the music really
my
resonated.
Mother hates me. I love that. It's so great. So
and to see this, see this character Angus Young just giving 110%. He wasn't staring at his shoes. I mean, you think a lot of the music back then in the 70s, you had your radio friendly. The only really out there character was Ted Nugent. And
I love Ted because of that.
Exactly.
I went and saw him every time because who knew the fuck what he was going to do on this tour? Because he came in on a helicopter one time at Dan the Green, and then the next year I seen him, he came swinging in on a rope like Tarzan. It's like there was always going to be something going on with this guy. Plus, the music was just so high energy.
High energy.
You know, and
It's
it's
crazy.
just what it was all
So,
about.
when seeing Angus, the pictures in Hit Parader and Circus Magazine, and Cream was big back then, and you read the
Hit Parader and Cream were the two ones. Yeah, Circus. Yeah,
Circus.
So those were the three that were the
but
big
you,
ones.
you
I
get the
had.
readers poll,
Yep.
and Kiss was always the best live band
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
worst live band.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Exactly.
How does that work?
I don't know.
But Angus
Equal
was
votes.
always, it was always like Jimmy Page was the number one icon, and then Angus was number 2.
Eddie Van Halen was up
Eddie
there
Van
too.
Halen,
of
yeah,
course,
all of
yeah.
us. So
Yeah.
I'm seeing these guys, and I'm trying to get as much Angus exposure as I can. But those guys, they didn't have a lot of media coverage. They were like Led Zeppelin in that sense.
No,
that
I know.
they,
I remember when I first finally bought a poster for them was maybe in '79, and it was like Bon in this red sweater going like this, and Angus going across stage in this real simple, no backdrop,
Right, no
you know what I
frills.
mean? No frills. It was just raw rock and roll, and I mean the character. The schoolboy little, and
Right.
the whole thing when you read on it, he won't stop eating Smarties, and
Right.
doesn't do his homework. His books are full of chocolate,
And if you remember back in the early '70s, that was before the dental plans kicked in, because
sure.
those guys had some grills that
yeah,
were,
they were
grievous.
You could tell that you
Missing
could tell
some teeth.
Mom and Dad didn't have much dental plan. There, but
Right.
they
So
did.
I mean, they paid their dues in Australia. I think early, like late '60s, early, and so it's always good when you go back and you look at those vintage black and white shots of them. Well, they'll play some high school dance in like Melbourne, Australia, and this is before they were AC/DC. They didn't have Bon Scott even in the
Right.
band. They had I think their original singer was Mark Evans.
Mark Evans, right?
And Malcolm was more into the glam bands, Slade and
Gary Glitter.
Fox on the Run. Who's
Sweet.
that? Sweet, yeah, those
Yes.
bands. And so the early days, he was trying to find that identity with the band. Partridge Family, one of my favorite glam bands. Not so much, maybe not.
A couple of the songs,
Yeah, but so
just a couple.
if you go back to their even before Bon Scott, they released that song "Can I Sit Next to You, Girl," and it had Mark Evans, and they're all glammed out and they're wearing the sweet outfits.
Well, they're trying to find their way.
They're
you know
trying
what
to
I
find
mean?
their way, and I don't even
Exactly.
think Angus was a schoolboy at that point. I think he's just wearing
Well,
a
he
T-shirt.
went through a couple of costumes changes. He was Spider-Man and Zorro, I think. and Super A for a minute. He stole
Yeah,
from
I've seen
Superman,
I've seen him
so-
dressed as a
Hey,
gorilla, but I think it was him.
Was it? And I believe his sister was his sister that came up with the idea for.
Yeah, I think he's because they got a lot of siblings, and I think his sister Margaret she actually is the one who had the name for the band. She saw it on the back of one of their sewing machines, and she said, "You should name your band AC/DC," and they went with it. And then she, I guess had the idea. Well, you're young, you look like a kid, you should dress like a schoolboy, and they ran with that. So
But he was though. He was still he was when they started. What he was 14 or 15
14 or
when he
15,
was
he
actually
was a kid.
playing in the band.
Yeah, and he's a lot of people are amazed and nowadays, and you can get vital statistics on everybody. But back in the '70s, he was larger than life, and when you find out he's like 5 foot tall and weighs 100 pounds, it doesn't. You're like going, really? Because again, he just looks bigger and all the imagery
Sure.
because he plays bigger.
Well, I think the image is the image of his playing. I mean, when you go to an AC/DC show, you see the band come out, but you're waiting for Angus. You're
yeah.
waiting for him,
Right, and
to
he's
come
got that
and do that.
SG. That's why I play an SG is because of Angus.
Right. Well, I'm
I
glad you do because tribute means play it. Talk about his gear. It's pretty simple. You pretty much play the same stuff he does. What's he play?
He plays, Gibson SG standard. He's got his own signature model. I think in the early 2000s, around the Thunderstruck era, he played his own signature model, the Angus Young SG, and it had the lightning bolt inlays. But I guess he just didn't like it. He went back to the SG standards. I think he plays is it a 59? No, it's got to be a 69 SG, the red one with the Bigsby, and that's the one that he plays and that he prefers, and he still goes to that model.
Pedals. He doesn't use much of that stuff.
No,
does he,
that's
Dave?
the one thing, man. I wish I could play some pedals. It would mask some deficiencies, but no, he's Gibson into Marshall. Let's go.
Yeah.
And it's funny because a lot of people will search for that tone, and they'll get these pedals and they'll try and, have a Mesa amp, or and it's like, just plug a Gibson into a Marshall and you've got the tone. But a lot of people like their pedals. Unfortunately, I get to play, people ask me, what do you play through? I go, I play through a tuner. That's really all I get to play through. So any deficiencies that I have, they're out there.
What happened to the lead boost that I asked about?
Yeah, I try and do the volume, because Angus, he plays so dry. I mean, that's the one thing about his tone. In the early days, he hardly any gain. It was such a clean tone. And then he would crank the volume, and that's where he'd get a little bit of his grit and a little bit of his sustain and a little bit the feedback that would come through. But he plays so clean. I can't play that clean. I need a little more sustain. So I play with a little more gain than he does. I try and get the Back in Black tone. It's a little grittier. But if you listen to their older stuff, man, his playing is so dry, and he's so proficient. He's so proficient as a blues player and just a guitar player. It's just incredible the kind of stuff he's doing. And he doesn't get enough credit for his playing ability and his playing style because of, I think, all the frills that come along with, his imagery. I think it kind of overshadows his actual playing ability. But anybody that has any aptitude with guitar will attest to Angus Young's actual playing ability. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think I think you're right, because even as a singer, when I was a kid, but I mean, even before I was a singer, obviously, when I was a kid, his antics is what grabbed me.
Right.
Although I loved the leads in the songs, to me they were signature, and I could mouth them in my head.
Right.
I knew when how they went, and that's we've talked about that before.
The best solos belong to the song. You couldn't put a different solo in there and have it with the same impact.
No, it doesn't. I agree. That's what's so signature about him.
So that's what drives me crazy when I see cover bands, and they'll do an AC/DC song, and they'll get to the solo, and then they'll play their own version of it. It makes my aneurysm shift.
Why did you even play this song exactly?
That's like changing the lyrics.
We're not a cover band. We are a tribute band. Tribute.
It's like changing the lyrics or adding a double bass. If it doesn't belong, I mean, those songs were written with that guitar solo structure as part of the song. So if you're changing it, what's the point in even playing the song?
And him and his brother worked such a great partnership as a writing,
Yeah, and what's funny is in the early days, and Angus is even in print saying this, is Malcolm's a better guitar player than he is. Malcolm is the guy who writes the riffs, and if you listen to 74 Jailbreak, Malcolm plays about half the leads on that album.
Really?
On the song Soul Stripper, they trade leads back and forth. Yeah, so it's Malcolm. His tone is a little more saturated, and Angus's tone is dry, so you can tell the difference. And I think it's panned left and right.
As a singer, I did not know that.
So
we're learning on the vault today, everyone.
But it was Malcolm who, set aside his ego and said, hey, the people want to see Angus, so let's feature him. And so he took a back seat as a guitar player, took a back seat to his little brother.
Every song says M. Young on it, you know what I mean?
His royalties.
A. Young, M. Young on it, be a B. Scott or Brian Johnson.
But still,
he's always on them.
As a guitar player and who's the leader of the band, to actually be able to step back from your ego and say, this is our path to success, is to feature Angus, my little brother. Who wants to feature their little brother? They want to be the star. So
sure.
Malcolm, the reason they've been able to sustain as long as they have is because I don't think he's driven by ego. And that's strange in this business. That's unique to have.
Well, I think this whole band is because, I mean, honestly, for as major as AC/DC is, and we're talking, they don't do arenas anymore. They play stadiums everywhere. They're really humble, and they're really, they're not out front. They never have been
out of the public eye.
You know what I mean? For the most part.
Yeah.
Had a little drummer problem a couple of years ago, little public eye, and unfortunately Malcolm has passed now,
Yeah,
and Cliff has stepped down. But it looks like Brian's going to come back.
It looks like they're all back for this.
Are they?
Yeah, even Cliff was in Vancouver. They're recording a new album.
Good.
And they, the rumor is, obviously we haven't heard anything, but they had some old leftover tracks from when Malcolm was alive that he'd recorded for some unfinished songs, and they're actually bringing those back. So Malcolm is going to appear posthumously on a couple of these tracks. So can't wait to hear it. You know,
That's going to be some good stuff.
AC/DC from the grave. They
I mean,
never
well,
die.
you know what? Why, so many bands are retiring as they are getting older and stuff. It's like I feel, man, I'm gonna do this as long as I can. You know what I mean? Exodus fans, I'm just letting you know, I'm in for the long haul. So that's what I want to do.
I never understand when people put an age limit on rock and roll. You're never too young, you're never too old, and if you guys are putting the product out there that people
and as long as there are people still want to come in to see it, exactly.
Yeah. Why would you stop?
There's no reason. It's what you are. It's what you do. I think you're obligated to the crowd in a lot of ways. It's like you've created this sound. There's nothing wrong with you if you're physically able to do it. And people. I believe that about Led Zeppelin. I've said that along. I mean, 3 of the 4 guys are there, and the 4th guy's son is just as badass as he is. Come on, one last time. Life is too short,
Right.
One last stadium run.
And what do
I'd
they
love
say?
to go to Oakland Coliseum. You know what I mean? Robert Plant doesn't want to do it for whatever.
He doesn't want to tarnish the legacy.
You know what I mean? There's no tarnishing the legacy. How do you tarnish the legacy? Your legacy is so written out. Give the fans. It's the fans that made you. Give them the present one more time.
Exactly.
Because
owe it
that
to the
gig,
fans.
it's been 10 years now since they did.
Since that.
And there was you had to go online, I guess, to get tickets. And
Wasn't that Atlantic Records 25th or 50th?
50th, but it was them. They were there. Obviously,
Right.
Zeppelin was the head. It was Led Zeppelin. And it was like, I don't know, 250 million people submitted for tickets to that thing. You know what I mean? It's
so there's definitely an audience for it. And why would you deny the audience? I get a lot of, as a Kiss fan, I get a lot of feedback. Didn't they already retire? I'm going, yeah, they did. But how many people retired, got bored, and wanted to come out of it? And if you can go to any city in the globe and have 10,000 people pay $100 to see you, why would you deny
what's your
them?
problem? Exactly.
Yeah, well, don't you go to work every day to make money? I do.
Yeah.
I don't do it for charity. I do it for money in the pocket.
That's right. So, hey, you guys, let me know what you guys think about Angus. What was the first time you saw AC/DC? What do you feel like we do about Angus? Was he such an icon that you would feel that, he was an influence on you? Guitar players, let me know what you think. And obviously, in the comments, I want you to know about that.
And if you say he wasn't an influence, I'm going to call you a liar right now.
You're a liar right now. And obviously share this because, we try to do these auto spotlights. I mean, this wasn't really necessarily about AC/DC. I'll probably do one about them fully and go through them. This was more because I had Dave with me, and Dave is the next best Angus next to Angus, and so I figured it would be a good thing to have him comment with me on it. But you guys, I want to really see what you guys feel about that. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel, and we'll come up with another artist spotlight, and I can have you back in the vault too, right?
Yes, I hang outside all the time.
He hangs outside
the
dungeon.
Yes. Let me in. I got something to say.
Love that.
I got something to say.
We'll see you guys in the vault real soon.